right there. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to sanitize, rinse and sanitize our spoon. Give this thing a good mix. And we are going to take a sample for our gravity reading. Alright, so there's our spoon rinsed. Sanitize it in a second here. And we're also going to take a gravity reading at this point. So we're going to need to sanitize our thief. These three-piece wine thieves are really nice. They're very easy to take apart and clean like this. The drawback is that they can have a little bit of a leak because they are three-piece, they're not one piece. And there's our test jar. Sliding around. So at this point we're not going to aerate just yet, but we do want to have a good, accurate reading of the water mixed with the beer so that we have an accurate sugar level reading. If we just did it off the top like that, it would probably be too watered down. If we put it all the way down on the bottom, likewise it'd give a false reading of being too viscous. And that should be plenty. Alright, let's take a reading with our thermometer and see if we're near 60 degrees. We're never going to pour this back into the beer. So there's no reason to sanitize the thermometer at this point. Any samples that you take, basically just drink them. Don't take the chance of pouring it back in your beer and contaminating your beer in any way, shape, or form. Well, look at that. Wow, we are right at as close to 60 degrees as you can get. And let's take a reading. We are shooting for 1067. Easiest way to do this is to stick it in and give it a twist. You might want to wait for the foam to die down because we look like we're a little bit high right now. We're probably around 1072. Now part of that is this is the hydrometer that we tested and knew that it was reading too many, so we're actually at 1070. Plus, because we used the fruitcake fruits, those had a lot of sugar in it as well, so that's going to add to the amount of sugar that Beersmith did not calculate, because Beersmith only took the things that it really knew about and took the sugar level out of that. So we've got our gravity reading. We're going to now do the aeration process that I talked about. Both buckets are sanitized and ready to go. And to me, this is the easiest, fastest way to aerate your beer ready for yeast pitching. And I do this until the foam is so high that putting the lid on the bucket would cause an overflow. Really doesn't take more than about 3 or 4 pours back and forth. You can see already it's well past the 6-gallon mark. It even starts making a different sound as it's pouring, less liquidy and more foam sounding. is as oxygenated as you can get. Or the other reason I like doing it this way is because once you sanitize the yeast packet and sanitizing what I'm opening it with, just so there's no crud that can actually get on our yeast at this point. When we're making an ale, the yeast we use is top fermenting. And a lot of people, when they create yeast starters, obviously you're making a liquid. You pour it in, it goes all the way down to the bottom of the bucket. And it has to basically work its way back up since it's a top fermenting yeast. I've never really read anything about this. This is just going off of personal experience. But I've noticed that with this approach and pitching the yeast right over the top of the foam, two things happen. One, the yeast gets rehydrated with a lot of oxygen already available to it, and it starts at the top. With it starting at the top of your wort, it doesn't have to find its way back up to start fermenting from the top. It's already at the top. By the time it gets through all this foam and it hits the bulk of our beer wort, it's rehydrated, ready to go. We're going to take the fruit that we had pulled out earlier and stuck on our lid. We're going to now carefully put it into the bucket as well. I actually probably could have done this before pitching the yeast. I'm going to sanitize this lid one last time. Making sure especially that the gasket is nice and saturated. Then one little trick I learned a long time ago, when you put the lid on, you're going to have an airlock on there. Plan ahead as to where the rim of the handle of the bucket's going to go, and judge accordingly. Instead of putting it right there, causing a problem, have it off to the side a little bit. That way you're not going to have the handle getting in the way. This is a very critical step. A lot of times people will call us and say, I'm not seeing bubbles. Well, the reason you're not seeing bubbles almost every time is because the lid's actually not sealed very well. So we put the lid on and made sure that the handle wouldn't get in the way of the airlock. Now it's time to put the airlock on. And a lot of people will take this and shove it all the way down inside. There's really no reason to do that. You actually want to have it up higher. So if you have a very active krausen, you have that much less chance of it coming up and clogging your airlock. So sanitize on the inside and the outside. When you insert it, leave the lid on because it's a lot easier to break the airlock if you take the lid off. Now you're working with just an outer shell. And literally, that's all you need to get that airlock in there. Don't shove it all the way down. Once it's on, then you can actually fill it with star sand or vodka or rum or anything that will keep, if it back flushes into your beer, it's not going to ruin it. That's why I actually prefer using vodka or rum over star sand, but all we have right now is star sand. Now, easiest way to check and see if you've got a good seal is once you have that in there, just barely push on your lid, and you can see that the bobber part of the airlock is moving up and down. That means that you've got a really good seal, and you should absolutely start seeing bubbles. In this case, I wouldn't be surprised within an hour. So anyway, thank you for joining us on our brew day. If you have any questions, give us a call at the store, 530-243-BEER. Visit us online, www.norcalbrewingsolutions.com. And we'll report on how this beer came out in a couple weeks. Until then, cheers.
No.
There's the blooper.
Side down. That's like dropping toast on the butter side.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Sad face.